We're here learning the Sefer Achinuch. I hope you'll open your Sefer if you've been learning with me. And feel free to post any questions or thoughts you have on this topic as we continue to learn together. So Mitzvah 24 is Shelo Neitzeh b'Shabbat chutz l'Techum, that we not go beyond the permitted limits on Shabbat, of where we can walk to on Shabbat. The Chinuch says, Lo lelechet b'Shabbat chutz ligvulim yuduim, that there is a restriction, a prohibition, lo taseh, from going on Shabbat beyond the known boundaries here. All right, we'll explain that a little bit more. And they learn this here. We're in Sefer Shmot, in the book of Exodus. And this is from the Pasuk, the verse in Shmot, Al Yetzei Ish Mimkomo B'Yom Hashvi'i. Right, that no one should go out from their place on the seventh day. Now, it's actually interesting, just tangentially. Mimkomo, from one's place. Right. Another way you could read that is Makom, of course, is a name of God, name of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, particularly in a time of mourning. But not that we should all Yetzei Ish Mimkomo. You shouldn't go out from the Shechina. You shouldn't go out from the presence of God on Shabbat. So of course we're dealing with a halachic idea here around travel, but we can also understand this theologically, that we're really trying to elevate our ideals, our spiritual consciousness on Shabbat. And one way you can understand this pasuk also is that we don't want to go out from that consciousness. We don't want to go out from the avodas Hashem. Shemkomo nikra kol she'enu marachik yotem mishalosh parsaot chutz la'ir v'aparsa dalid milin v'hamil alpayim amma. Right, so it gets very technical here in terms of how we measure all this. But one's place, the Chinuch says, means whatever is not more than 3 parsaot away from the city, this distance. And a parsa is 4 mil, a mil being 2,000 cubits, 2,000 amot. And 1 amma, let's say 1 cubit, is about 1.5 feet. More precisely, the main position is that it's 18.9 inches. Another view is that it's 22.7 inches. Is the amma, is the cubit itself. So a lot of complications of how we measure this, but going forward in the chinuch, we learn of where this comes from, right? The tamei hamitzvot, the reasons that we can best grasp to understand this. And the chinuch brings another part of the Torah that we learn from over here in Exodus. Ki shesh yatamim asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz et hayam v'et kol shabam v'yanach b'yom hashvi. Right, that we, as we say on Shabbat, for in 6 days God made the heaven and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and God rested on the 7th day. So we learn from here, okay, lezecher hadavar ru'ui lanu shenuach b'makom echad, klomar shelo nelech b'derech rachok, rak derech ti'ul v'oneg. V'halichat yud bet milin ein bo torach rav. Right, that we learn here that just as God rested after creating the world, so too we should rest. So there's a notion of menucha, that we can't live in a rat race. We have to have moments where we pause. And for the Jews, Shabbat is this time where we put down our work, we stop making the world and everything in the world of instrumental value, and we actually embrace and rest. We embrace in self-care. And in this self-care, we also learn other care. Right? We learn how to care for others by taking care of ourselves. Oftentimes those who are most abusive to themselves, unable to rest, also can treat others in such a way as well. Except derech ti'ul v'derech oneg, right? Something that is a nice, pleasurable trip. You take a stroll, a pleasurable walk in the park, v'derech oneg, right? Another type of pleasurable type of short journey. The other aspect here is the problem of FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. That every other place is where I want to be. I want to be in that shul, and I want to be in that town, and I want to be somewhere else. But actually what we're saying is that right here is what I affirm. On Shabbos, I want to be right here. This place is holy. This place is right for me. I want to focus where I am. And it reminds me of a Rebbe Nachman Torah, beautiful Rebbe Nachman Torah. In many ways, it can be understood as post-Zionist in a way. That he basically says, where is Eretz Yisrael? Where's Israel It's wherever I bring my koach. Where I bring my koach, at that moment, it's the holiest place in the world. Mamish, I'm like in Eretz Yisrael. I could be in the furthest place in Golis, anywhere in the diaspora, but at that moment, I clap. I got a niggin going. Hum, bididum, bididum. And as I'm standing here, in my niggin, I'm clapping, I bring the Dalit Amos around me, the small area around me, that is Eretz Yisrael. And what does he learn that? He says, it's about koach. Koach. And the gematria of koach is 28, meaning if you take the letters, you have 20 and you have 8, the numerical value of the letters. And he says, if you look, when you're clapping, you look at the little parts of your finger, right? You got 3, 3, 3. I think they're called phalanges, right? 3, 3, 3, that's 12. And then 2 more here. So 14 per hand, 14 and 14, 28. Koach. He says, when you bring your koach, you're clapping, you bring your koach, and at that moment where you are, it's the holiest place in the world. So that's what we do on Shabbos. Techum, we put a boundary. I don't need to go over there or over there. I want to be right here. I want to be right here. Further, we don't want to go into the midbar, right? We don't want to go all the way out there, right? We want to stay in civilization. We want to stay in community, right? And part of the measurements is based upon where civilization and where community ends. Now, it's interesting to note, just tangentially, that the Ramban, Nachmanides, who of course often argues with Maimonides, who is the basis of this Taryag, of this counting of 613, says we don't count Techum Shabbos. We don't count this Shabbos boundary in the 613 biblical commands because he thinks it's the Rabbanan. He thinks this is only a rabbinic prohibition, a lower prohibition, and not deraisa. It's not a biblical prohibition. How does he learn it? Right? If you remember, our verse says, "Al yetze ish mimkomo b'yom hashvi." Right? Don't go out. A person shouldn't go out from their place on the seventh day. That's a Maimonidean read of it. But a Nachmanidean read of this, he doesn't say Al Yetze, he reads it as Al Yotzi. Right? Not don't go out, but don't bring out, don't carry out. So he's reading this to be the prohibition around carrying, rather than the prohibition around Techum Shabbat, around the boundaries of Shabbat itself. So this Techum extends 2,000 cubits around a city in every direction. And one can actually, in a fascinating way, extend their Techum in one direction by means of an Eruv. Now, when I talk about Eruv, this is a little confusing. That I'm not talking about Eruvei Chatzeres. In Eruvei Chatzeres, we're talking about this string that we know around town, this cord, this rope, that creates this shared domain. Right? Carry inside the shared domain, don't carry outside the shared domain. But that's not what we're talking about. We're also not talking about Erev Tavshilin, right? When Shabbos comes right after Yom Tov, the question is, how on Yom Tov can I cook my food, prepare my food for Shabbos? So you have a rabbinic mechanism called Erev Tavshilin. But here we're talking about Erevei Techumin. In Erevei Techumin, then we're actually dealing with something else, which actually is quite interesting, where boundaries are kind of relative. Where is my base? Where do I build this from? What's the last house in my particular city? The last bit of civilization. So there's a very relativistic category, actually, to how we measure this kind of thing, and it's very complicated. We're not going to go into that now. But actually, speaking of the relativity of boundaries, there's a beautiful agarta, a beautiful midrash story in the Talmud, in Chagiga 15a. And it's about Rebbe Meir and Acher, Elisha ben Avuya. And if you've read As a Driven Leaf, if you haven't, it's a wonderful book to read. That basically in the Pardes story, over here in Chagiga, in the Talmudic tractate of Chagiga, there's 4 that go into this mystical experience. You've got Rebbe Akiva, and when he comes out b'shalom. He comes out in peace of this mystical experience. You've got Ben Zoma, and he comes out with mental instability from his mystical encounter. You've got Ben Azai, who dies, the Talmud says. And then you've got Rav Elisha ben Avuya, who comes out as Acher. He leaves the tradition, essentially. Now, it's important to note that there's different girsa, different version that switches Ben Zoma and Ben Azai. Which one goes mentally, acquires mental instability, and which one kills himself in this story. It becomes suicidal. Actually, it's a wonderful passage to study at length. But in any case, so Elisha ben Avuya Acher is a teacher of Rebbe Meir, one of the great sages in the Talmud, married to Bruria, the great sage Bruria, the great Rebbe Bruria, who actually teaches Rebbe Meir quite a bit, in particular how hate the sin but love the sinner. And Rebbe Meir had tragedy in his life. In Bruria, they lost a child, around Shiluach HaKen, sending away the mother bird and falling out of the tree. In any case, there's this beautiful passage over here in Chagiga where it says, our rabbis taught, it happened with Acher, that he was riding on a horse on Shabbos. And Rebbe Meir was running after him because he's a student, he loves him. He's running after him to learn the Torah from his mouth. And he says to him, Acher says to him, Meir, Choser, return from running after me. For I have measured the steps of my horse, and at this point is the Techum of Shabbat. Ad kan Techum Shabbos, he says. And this is amazing. Talk about pluralism. Their moral and theological and spiritual convictions are quite different now. Acher has left the tradition. He believes he can't return. Teshuvah, repentance, is no longer impossible for him. But Rebbe Meir says, I don't care. I want to learn from you. You're my Rebbe. I love you, even if you're not Shomer Shabbos like I am. I love you for who you are. You're my teacher. And Acher doesn't say, ugh, Torah, halacha, disgusting. Why are you embracing such tribalistic, silly, ideas? Instead, he honors the boundary of his Talmud, of his student, and he continues to count the Techum Shabbos, the boundary of Shabbat, that he's going to himself violate. And at this very moment, he's about to cross and violate Techum Shabbat. And yet he says, you should stop here. And this beautiful teacher-student model of, I love you, teacher, even if our boundaries are different, and I love you, student, so much that I honor your boundary, even if it's different from mine. How much we can learn from that encounter, cultivating a more respectful Jewish people, more respectful human race towards diversity. That we hold on to our own absolutes, but we honor the absolutes of others. Because as my great teacher, Rabbi Dr. Yitz Greenberg, says, that pluralism is not some total relativism, nothing is true. He says pluralism is, I hold my absolute, but I create space for your absolutes as well. He can no longer care about the Techum Shabbat. It's irrelevant to him. Rabbi Meir, he only operates within Techum Shabbat. And yet they still honor each other's absolutes. Boundaries are really, really important. We know this now more than ever before. Setting boundaries financially, sexually, professionally, in terms of privacy. And thinking about that. And Techum Shabbat can be a vehicle that helps us think about how we set in an age of where folks love to cross all boundaries of setting boundaries in our life. And in fact, this is not just about moral and religious safeguarding, but it's also about creativity. I saw a recent psychology study that said if you don't have a fence in your backyard, your children will play in a very small area in that yard. But if you put a fence in the backyard, they will play in the entirety of the yard. That's to say that when we have structure, when we have boundaries, we feel safer to engage in creativity. When we have no boundaries, we feel a little less safe. We hide away a little bit more. So in fact, perhaps paradoxically, setting boundaries, setting limits actually enables us to be even more creative. And the last point I want to make on this is that sometimes, and we learn this from Gan Eden, from the Garden of Eden and the eating of the fruit, that sometimes we're obsessed with what's outside, right? What's outside the Techum. But rather, what we're asked to do is cultivate a joy and appreciation for what's inside. Learn to appreciate what we are, where we are, who we're with, rather than be obsessed with the outside. This is the Hakarat HaTov. This is the Hakarat HaTov that we can cultivate in our lives. Just as what we have over here are 3 parsaot, was the measure of the length of the Israelite camp in the Midbar as they're traveling. So too, each of us is on our journey in life, like the Israelites were doing from Egypt to the Promised Land. And in that journey, we set up camp. And even though we're journeying to some destination, true happiness in life is about appreciating where we are in this moment on the journey. And that's what Techum Shabbos can teach us. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.